I'm going to offer one more minute for the stragglers to come fumbling in here. And then, yeah, we're looking forward to this. So. Okay, I think uh, I think it's official. We're going to get going. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important conversation about plastics recycling. My name is Derek Canwisher, and I'm the Zero Waste and Program Coordinator for UM's Office of Sustainability. We have been wanting to host a discussion about this topic for ages, and finally the stars have aligned. And by stars, I'm referring to our two very special guest presenters who will shed some light on this topic with all of us today. Before I offer any formal introduction, I'd like to begin our presentation with a land acknowledgement for this special place where we currently reside. University of Montana acknowledges that we are in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Today, we honor the path they have always shown us in caring for this place for the generations to come. So our two presenters are JT and Youpa. I'm going to just offer here a brief introduction to JT. He has been entrenched in the business side of recycling for at least 20 years. JT is passionate about creating circular economies for materials that can be recycled into reusable goods and products. His resume of accomplishments includes the titles of founder and CEO for a lengthy list of companies which he has started and turned into successful enterprises. A few of the many clients JT has worked for and with include the Coca-Cola Company, the Super Bowl, Major League Soccer, the Olympic Games, Atlanta Braves, the FIFA World Cup. He also advises colleges and universities across the country, among many others. We were fortunate to host JT this past week at the University of Montana, hoping to learn from his breadth of experience and expertise. While JT was in town, we toured the facilities at Republic Services and throughout the campus where JT was able to meet a variety of committees and groups who all share a common goal to help make a better model for circular solutions. Our second presenter will be Youpa Stein, and Youpa Stein also has a long resume and all right, anyway, she was born in Montana. She received a BFA in acting and directing from the University of Montana and an MA in psychology from the California Institute of Integral Studies. As an artist and concerned citizen, Youpa works to raise awareness about the pollution and climate impacts of plastics and the solutions to address them through giving talk, writing, creating art, and policy action. In the fall of 2022, she started volunteering as a co-chair for the Montana organization Families for a Livable Climate Plastics Working Group. Youpa agrees with the writer, farmer, and activist Wendell Berry in his belief that the care of the earth is our most ancient and worthiest responsibility. And just a bit of housekeeping here. In this forum, online forum, we want to invite folks to participate as much as possible. Our two guests today will take about 15 minutes each to share their presentations, and we'll follow up with a question and discussion session that stems from our participant questions. Feel free to utilize the Q&A function to type your questions for the presenters. And if you have any comments or resources to enrich the conversation, you can place those in the chat. We will hold all questions until the end of the two presentations. Haley Hilliard, the ASUN Sustainability Coordinator, will be monitoring the Q&A in the chat windows. Thank you, Haley. During the latter portions of the presentation, look for a Qualtrics survey we'll be posting in the chat for you to offer your thoughts and feedback about the presentations you are hearing today. Also, we wanted to point out that this discussion will be recorded. There were quite a few number of people who were not able to make it to the discussion today, and our guest presenters have been generous enough to grant us permission to share this recording with those individuals. Haley, are you able to start the video recording?
Yep, I've got it started already.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Okay. Just to set a little context here before we kick off, if we zoom out a bit, the scale of the plastic problem starts to come into focus. More than ever, we, all of us, are the plastics generation. We, or the Earth, has never been exposed to this level of plastic production before. The human population has tripled since 1950, and plastic production has increased 70-fold. And we are on track to double production again by 2050. It is simply incredible to think about how ubiquitous plastic has become in the past 15 to 20 years. At the University of Montana, our recycling program separates streams of recyclables with the goal of decreasing the amount of items we send to the landfill for disposal. The plastics and cans are consolidated together at facility services, where they are loaded into a 30-yard compactor. When this is full, our local waste hauler picks up these materials and sends them away to a more advanced facility for sorting, processing, and eventual shipping to another facility. We all want to believe that we are doing the right thing and that this recycling infrastructure and process is able to support our common needs and values. On a global stage, it is difficult to ignore the stories about how some plastics are being dumped overseas, sent to the landfill, or sent to incineration facilities to create energy. The Chinese national sword policy has created ripple effects across sectors of our society who are grappling with how to best deal with this nuanced stream of material. Plastics, for many, has become a bit of the poster child for all that is wrong, or what is perceived to be wrong with recycling. But the topic is much more nuanced than this. This plastics recycling problem is not going away anytime soon, and there is no single solution to fix it. One of our goals today is to share perspectives from our two guests, which may help us understand the state of plastic recycling and what are the best strategies to bring about meaningful action and change. Okay. Before I pass the baton to our presenters, I want to share a quick online poll. Clearly, there is no right or wrong answer. Can I get a response from someone that's able to see it?
Can't see it. Oh, here it is.
All right.
If you hover your mouse over each one, you'll be able to read. Some of them are like too long. So if you hover over, you can read the full answer.
Okay, I'm starting to see quite a few responses coming in. Just offer another 20, 30 seconds, maybe less. We're gonna close the poll in 5 seconds. Okay, I'm closing the poll. All right, so as a result from that, I'm seeing that policy and regulation is, hopefully you guys can see that. Policy and regulation is one of the strategies we're looking for. Improved infrastructure and technology. All of these topics are items that are going to be spoken to today by our presenters. So I am finally going to step out of the way and introduce, I've already introduced, but I'm going to pass the baton to JT Marburger. JT, did you want to do a screen share with your presentation?
Whatever best for you. Sure, I can do that. Is that
I
the
have your
sure?
slides
Why don't-
loaded already. If you'd like to use those, I could advance the slides.
Yeah, just advance the slide. That's fine, and then you can keep me on my schedule. So, okay. Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to speak to everybody. So, I'll give you a little pointer. So, I had never been to Montana my whole life. So, I'm 62 years old. So, my first trip was last week, and so I'll give you a forewarning. After my trip to your beautiful city, I went to Sun Valley, Idaho, and I'm sure most people think Sun Valley, Idaho is really pretty, but I have to say you won. So don't go to Missoula, Montana before you go to Sun Valley because you have a very, I vote for you, very beautiful place. So feel honored to be there. So yeah, let me give you real quick my background. It's like my favorite movie of all time is It's a Wonderful Life, and Jimmy Stewart's counterpart. Got into plastic buildings business, right? So Derek, maybe those original slides was things to say. I'm not quite sure when that movie was made. Maybe Youpa can tell us, and she's an actress, when that was made. But who would guess I would be somewhat in this plastic circular economy business? So, long story short. I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I do come at this as a different approach. I came from a business person, and basically 20 years ago, Coca-Cola came to me and said, "Hey, listen, our bottles can be turned into textiles." And I said, "Well, that makes a lot of." I had no idea, and I said, "Wow, that would make a big difference." There's plenty of bottles into the system right now. How do we do this? How do we make this work economically? And what a better concept, right? To make all textiles from bottles. I thought, obviously, I used to do, as Derek mentioned, all of Coca-Cola. I did Olympics. I had pretty much all sports properties, and I was like, wouldn't it be great to take those bottles and make their clothing from that? So I did that for 15 years, and 5 years ago, I formed Circular Solutions Advisors. I always tease that I retired for half a day. Didn't last too long. Um, be happy to say yes because I like serious. And the reason I started it on Y Chain so that we can get not just plastic bottles but everything back. So how is the supply stream set up properly? I as a business person, as my foundation is, in order to do it, it's got to work economically. So do you want to move to the next slide, please? So how do we do that at Circular Solutions? So the first big aha moment for me was that we really needed to say, and I think everybody that's on this call will probably be shaking their heads if I can see them, to say, what happens when that truck leaves either by your curb or the university? What's really happening? Is it really getting recycled? And that was where I wanted to focus. So what happens in the supply chain is when it gets to that materials recovery facility, the truck will haul. That's where it gets sorted and baled. And so the challenge that I found with commercial accounts, especially, that 95% of that material never made it to the MRF, or it made it to the MRF and it wasn't prepared properly. The big aha moment was most MRFs today will not accept material in bags. So as you can think about it, right? So right now, the recycling bin, you're doing all that great work. There's a lot of communication. You think it's getting in the supply chain. Unfortunately, if it's not taken out of the liner, it doesn't get processed. So what happens is I go to facilities like University of Montana, which I'm happy to report is not the case, and say, hey, how do we get it out of the bags? Because we want to make sure it's truly circular. So that's kind of the first thing that we audit and make sure that's happening. And then once that happens, I want to provide transparency for clients. Is it really even being recycled? I hear comments like, hey, we want to ban single stream recycling. And frankly, I'm okay with that. But I say, I'm sorry, single-use plastic recycling. So what is single-use plastic? So in my opinion, I can tell you in the United States and in Canada, where I am today, Every recycling center, which would be a MRF in the United States, recycles number one plastics, which is a PET bottle, and number two, which is your milk jug. It's questionable. Where does it happen? How does it happen? And that's part of the services we offer. And I think the component of retrieving plastic. So, and then the next thing,
JT, you're cutting out a little bit. Maybe could you try to
recycling,
turn off
you know,
your
I
video
find a lot
so we
of,
could hear you?
is that better?
So far, so good. Sorry to interrupt. We just wanted to make sure we could hear all that you were saying.
Yeah, sure, right. So the next thing we want to do is make sure there's sustainability managers, sustainability people. I find many times don't have budgets, and so whatever we do, we try to create a cost neutral program because people don't like to spend more money to do recycling. And then the last component is to share the successes. So, so if we can move to the next slide. So one thing that people probably don't realize about the supply chain, and I felt it was important in this call today, was to share it. So what happens is for plastics, we need to focus on both things, plastic and aluminum. So what happens is it goes from the oil industry to a chemical plant. And then from a chemical plant, it gets made into PET flakes and pellets. Then it goes to preform, and then it makes a PET bottle. What people don't understand is the supply chain from recycled plastics does not flow back through the oil and chemical plants. They flow from, as I mentioned, it gets hauled. From the hauler, it goes to the MRF. From there, it goes to a mechanical recycling plant, and they're in competition with the oil industry. So what happens is when I see bans and eliminations and things like that, I don't think people realize you're hurting the recycling industry when those things happen. So I'm all for reducing the amount of virgin plastic in the market. And Youpa and I had some great conversations of ways that it's been done. There's 120 mechanical recycling plants throughout the U.S. And then from mechanical recycling, then the same process happened. It gets turned into PET flakes, pellets, preforms, and then Coke, along with I think other suppliers as well, are trying to make 100% of their new bottles from old bottles. So that is basically Circular Solutions' main goal. So I like to show the differential between plastics and aluminum because they're both beverage packaging. And so what happens in the traditional aluminum supply chain is that, again, aluminum comes from mining and bauxite, and then it goes to the smelter, can sheet mills, can manufacturing. And what's different is the way that the recycling of aluminum works. It actually gets processed by the same aluminum smelter. So unlike plastics, both aluminum gets both recycled and virgin gets melted down in the same mills. That does not happen in the recycled plastic world. So I like to show that difference so that people understand. In the case of aluminum, both things get recycled, both get processed by the same parties, and so that's the big differential. So you can move to the next slide. So again, explaining a little bit. So what's one of the challenges that we're faced is that when we get into, so we're the largest and only brokerage house that handles beverage packaging. So we trade that every day. I want to give you a little bit idea of what happens with that trading. So I never pro or con anything, but I do like to share. Big Oil had record profits in 2022. So, and obviously, as I told you, oil is a derivative of plastics. And what happened in the market this past summer is they have the opportunity to flood the market with virgin plastics, which drives the price down for recycling. So recycling has to match the virgin pricing. And so it got down, and I think Derek got to hear this firsthand. It got down. I do think legislation plays some impact. I do know there's Congress to say, hey, big oil, you lower the prices so low that you make recycling, the recycling infrastructure not able to compete. So selling their commodity at 0.1 cents. So it's a little fact that most people aren't aware of, and I thought it was important to bring up here. So we put to the next slide. So one of the issues with reuse is there's not going to be enough. By 2030, we show a 70% shortfall. I did want to share by Recycling Resources that just came out recently. Right now, the beverage companies, Coca-Cola has 14.9% post-consumer resin into their bottles. Pepsi has 7.9 and Dago has 6.9. So we feel, is it altruistic? Is it, I mean, right, Youpa and I both do these things from different perspective. We probably have a little altruism, a little things that want to do better in the world. So we want to see, my goal, our goal at Circular Solutions is to continue, we can't control what happens in the virgin market, but we certainly can have an impact on what we recover. And I know that, Coca-Cola's goal as well as, and this is not a Coca-Cola branded thing, this is all plastics. We think that new bottles should be made for old bottles, and we want to help close that gap of 70%. So go to the next slide.
JT, I don't have any more slides for you.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I stayed within my 15-minute time limit. So thank you so much for allowing me to present. And I guess does Youpa take over from here? So
Actually, so JT, you broke up on our last slide, and I just wanted to give you a chance to, you were sharing an anecdote. I forget the specifics. Towards the very end, you're talking about what was there a take-home point from this slide that you wanted to conclude with?
yeah, sure. My take home from this is that, our focus is on recycled PET, which is very different than virgin oil. And I feel the way that the system's set up right now, I'm in favor of this legislation to offer assistance in the recycling world. I doubt many people on this call understand behind the commodity trading that big oil floods the market, which creates challenges with the recycle. Anytime they get to a 0 or 1 cent price, it drives recyclers out of business. And so this reduced act that's introduced in Congress, I'm supporting. I think it's a great act because what it would be is basically a 4 to 5 cent what do we call it, tax add-on to virgin oil so that it can support the recycling order, because people don't realize they're in competition. So big oil really, wants, do they want recycling or not? I don't know, but they are their competitors. So I think it's important to know that and realize that. And my company's role is 100% to recover as much is put into places like the University, Montana, and your city, and that is our focus 100%. So hopefully I said that. I'm sorry I broke up. I've had to change my internet a couple times, so I apologize for any technical difficulties. So.
JT, just one other clarification question that we had somebody have. At the very beginning of your presentation, when we first had you turn off your video, somebody asked if you could repeat what happens to the different kinds of plastic at the MRF, since you were cutting out at that point.
Yeah. So, and I can tell you what happens there in Missoula. So right now, all of your plastic specifically there in your city, at Republic Services, they're shipping it all to Las Vegas. So plastics 1. So when you look on the bottom, there'll be a number 1 through 1 through 5s, no, I'm sorry, 1 through 7s are all being sent to Las Vegas to be processed. We're in the process of auditing the Las Vegas plant, and the entire United States are always recycled. So ones, which is going to be PET, water bottle, Coke bottle, whatever, is always going to be recycled. Your milk jugs are always going to be recycled. Every plant in the United States recycle those. The 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7s, 5, about 30% of the 6 and 7s cannot be recycled. So what happens to those? One of two things: they either go to landfill or they get burned for energy. So those are the components. So.
Thanks for following up, and thanks for the clarification, JT. Really appreciate it. We're going to move on to our second presenter now, Youpa Stein, who has been formally introduced already. Youpa, I'm going to stop sharing. You can take over. Youpa,
you want to unmute.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Derek, and thank you to the Office of Sustainability at the university. And thank you, JT, for sharing your perspective and all your experience. I look forward to more conversations in the future. I'm going to do a 15-minute condensed view of some plastic problems and false solutions, and some actions to address them in support of a regenerative circular economy. So that's a pretty awkward title. I wanted to let you know that I use the words "we" sometimes in this talk, and it's in reference to humans as a species. Also, there's a resource handout available, and if you'd like a copy, you can email Sarah at livableclimate.org. So I'm going to jump in.
You're not sharing your screen if you have a presentation.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Screen share. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Talia. So here we go. Everywhere we've looked on the planet, we find plastic on the tops of high remote mountains like Mount Everest to the deepest part of the ocean, the Mariana Trench, where researchers found that 72% of the amphipods they studied contained plastic fibers and fragments in their guts. We found plastic in beer, salt, earthworms, and apples. We found microplastics in placentas, deep in human lungs, in blood, in testes, in semen, and breast milk. As Derek pointed out, we've been making lots of plastic since 1950, over half of which has been produced since 2002. And we've also been making lots of plastic waste, over 6.3 billion tons. And we're on track. Without intervention, plastic waste is going to triple by 2060. Current production, 40% of current production is for packaging, designed to be used briefly one time and then discarded. It's also important to know that plastic pollutes at every stage I'm trying to get rid of this. Plastic pollutes at every stage from production, use, and after use. And in that process, it disproportionately harms low-income communities and communities of people of color, or both. And it is important to remember the harm caused by plastic at every stage, because often proposed solutions only look at plastic waste. Well, I did want to say that Plastic also contributes to climate change at every stage, but we don't have time to talk about that today. So what are plastics? And most, like 98% of plastics are made by combining chemicals and fossil fuels. Most human-made or synthetic chemicals are derived from fossil fuel byproducts manufactured by the petrochemical industry. So it's all very connected. Most plastic currently manufactured in the United States utilizes ethane, which is a cheap byproduct of hydraulic fracturing. And this slide is from UN Environment. I'm trying to get rid of this. I don't know how to get rid of it. UN Environment, and looking at what's in plastics. So the main building blocks of plastic material are monomers and polymers. And then there's this whole slew of additives. And on the right, you can see a breakdown of some of these additives, which include things that can make plastic softer or more flexible or keep it from catching fire. And the percentage of weight of these additives in a material can be up to 70%. Then there are other intentionally added substances and non-intentionally added substances, such as solvents, cleaning agents, or impurities from manufacturing or recycling. There are 13,000 chemicals currently known to be used in the production of plastics, and many of them haven't been tested for toxicity. Most of them. There are 1,254 chemicals in plastics known to be persistent, carcinogenic, neurotoxic, and or endocrine disrupting. So there's all these processes that go into making plastics, and the resins that are created or flakes are then melted, cooled down, and made into pre-production pellets known as nurdles. An estimated 250,000 tons of nurdles leak into waterways each year. This poor fish thought some nurdles were food. Plastics, whether they start out tiny, such as nurdles or microfibers released from clothing, or whether they start out larger, like a plastic water bottle, degrade into smaller and smaller pieces or components, but they never biodegrade and become a beneficial part of life cycles. As plastics break down into smaller pieces, microplastics can be the size of a grain of sand, and nanoplastics can be a fraction of the size of a blood cell. So it can be hard to find, hard to measure, hard to quantify. Health consequences can include physical damage from plastic objects and particles, and chemical and toxicological exposures. And micro nanoplastics can also attract and carry chemicals from other sources, and they can leach chemical. Philip Landrigan, a pediatrician, puts it this way: consider every micro and nanoplastic a tiny Trojan horse carrying a toxic payload wherever it goes. Sometimes it can seem like plastic is far away from us here in Montana, plastic pollution anyway. But here are a few studies that show that that's not true. In 2019, Environment Montana studied water samples from 50 fishing access sites across the state and found that 66% of those samples contained tiny bits of plastic. A 2-year study of the Gallatin River at 72 locations found that 57% of the samples contained microplastic pollution. And just one more. A visiting Chinese researcher working with the University of Montana's Flathead Lake Biological Station found microplastics in every sample collected at 12 sites around the lake. So these tiny bits of plastic are so small that they can get caught up in the hydrologic cycle, meaning that they're evaporated with water molecules and end up in our clouds. And they're distributed everywhere on Earth through rain and snow and dust swept up by wind. And they're in our air and water and soil and tiny to large life forms. So what are some of the impacts of this plastic in these pieces of plastic in our world, this plastic? I want to just take a moment and look at some of the health issues associated with plastics. For more information on this topic, a good resource is the Mindrew-Monaco Commission on Plastics and Human Health. It was published last March, and it's a comprehensive analysis of the health impacts of plastic related to every stage of plastics. And it's a big report, but it's available for free as a PDF, and there's a link that in the resource handout that's available. There are many false solutions to plastic pollution, and I'm just going to look at one of them real quickly. Chemical recycling, or what the industry likes to call advanced recycling. It's increasingly being touted as a solution to plastic waste. It's not. It threatens the environment, climate, human health, and environmental justice. There's a new report put out by Beyond Plastics and IPEN, and it's an investigation of all 11 constructed chemical recycling facilities in the United States. And I want to point out that petrochemical and plastics industries have been working across the US to pass state laws that reclassify chemical recycling facilities as manufacturing rather than waste facilities. And this reduces the regulation of these plants. Chemical recycling is one of many distractions from a primary solution to the problem, which is to reduce how much plastic is being reduced in the first place. A common sense perspective is that if your bathtub was overflowing with water, you wouldn't reach for a teaspoon and start bailing. You'd first turn off the tap. And so an approach of looking at, first we have to reduce plastic, and how do we do that? But I want to go back to a UN environment slide that looks at what to do with these, how to tend to these chemicals in the plastic life cycle. And I highlighted just a few recommendations. They're recommending phasing out chemicals of concern and sharing information on the chemicals in plastics, because there's not much transparency currently. And on the left here, the improvement of waste collection, which JT has a lot of experience in looking at how to make the circularity and the streams work better. And then I highlighted we need to ensure hazardous substances do not contaminate new products through recycling. So most policy work tackling the plastic pollution problem includes mechanical recycling. And it's important how we can look at how we can make it better and how we can make it safer. And in the gray box, there's some issues that are part of why our recycling system doesn't currently work very well. And I'm not going to go into those right now, but we can talk about them more if there's time in the questions. But I wanted to look at some concerns from recent research about toxic chemicals and recycling. And this is a quote from Professor Bethany Harney-Almroth from the University of Gothenburg. And she was the lead scientist in a peer-reviewed study of pollutants in recycled polyethylene pellets. She said numerous studies show that hazardous chemicals can accumulate even in relatively closed-loop plastic recycling systems. This report, a data set of organic pollutants identified and quantified in recycled polyethylene pellets. The scientists examined pellets from recycled plastic collected in 13 countries and found hundreds of toxic chemicals. These compounds span various classes, including pesticides, pharmaceuticals, industrial chemicals, and plastic additives. Researchers from the University of Gothenburg, IPEN, and Aarhus University and the University of Exeter, they they noted that from their perspective, before recycling can contribute to tackling the plastic pollution crisis, plastics industry must limit hazardous chemicals. So that's a perspective. And oops, sorry about that. So if we're looking at solutions, it's, as both JT and Derek said, there's not one solution. We need to look at multiple level solutions, and we can look at a global, national, state, and local levels. And I'm going to quickly go through some of these. Some of you may know about the Global Plastics Treaty. There's a mandate to negotiate a legally binding global plastics treaty that addresses the whole life cycle of plastic. There are 5 sessions to craft this treaty. Currently, right now, the 13th through the 19th of November is the 3rd session in Nairobi, Kenya, and the negotiations are set to culminate by the end of 2024. And some of the issues they're tackling, there's 175 countries, numerous representatives from fossil fuel industries and many nonprofit organizations. And some of the issues that I've mentioned were, how do we reduce plastic production and use, and particularly problematic plastics? How do we tackle health impacts, including hazardous chemicals used in plastics? And how do we ensure a just transition that's fair and equitable and inclusive? Break Free from Plastic Pollution is a international organization. There are quite a few organizations working on this global plastics treaty, and I've listed them as a resource and other resources for the treaty if people are interested in learning more about that really important work. On the national level, I don't think you can see it, but the Break Free from Plastic Pollution Act was just recently reintroduced, and it's endorsed by nearly 100 organizations, including Beyond Plastics, because it addresses key elements to reducing the life cycle harms of plastic. If you're interested in knowing more about or getting support for action on this national bill, I recommend Beyond Plastics. They're a great resource for training and opportunities for action. And I really appreciate the organization because it's an opportunity for networking, learning, and sharing information. How am I doing for time? Okay. On the state and local level, many of you probably know that enshrined in our Constitution is a right to a clean and healthful environment, and also corresponding duty. The state and each person shall maintain and improve a clean and healthful environment. In Montana, local governments are banned from regulating plastic pollution, protect their communities, because in 2021, the legislature passed House Bill 407. And this bill takes away the power of local governments to protect their communities from plastic pollution, while at the same time failing to address those harms. Cottonwood Environmental Law is on behalf of Montana citizen plaintiffs within the next week in the process of filing a lawsuit regarding House Bill 407. And if you want to stay in the loop about litigation and get updates, you can go to cottonwoodlaw.org. Just a few more. I know we're running out of time here. Jeremy, who's on this call, has been working with Missoula County Public Schools on zero waste, doing really great work. And I've listed all of these, some of the work that they've been doing. Thanks for sharing that, Jeremy. So that's available in the handout as well. And Missoula, the city of Missoula has been doing work on their 0 by 50 zero waste plan in partnership sometimes, and they all have their own projects, and Home Resource is always doing really important work. They're doing zero waste events. One example is in 2022, there was 0% waste diversion. In 2023, with help from lots of volunteers, you could be one. 74% diversion. And they're opening up a household hazardous waste facility in 2024. So if you're interested, there's more of these updates in that resource handout, and I encourage you to check out local opportunities to volunteer. And this is also in the handout, some personal daily actions to reduce plastic pollution. So Families for Livable Climate believes that action is our hope. And to sign up for Montana Action Alerts, you can go to the website livableclimate.org, click on Join Us and select Plastic Working Group, or you can reach out to Sarah at Livable Climate and connect. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to questions and more conversation and connection. I'll stop sharing and turn it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Youpa, very much, and JT for sharing today. Struggling here to get this next presentation back up. Let me do this real quick. All right, so at this point, let's see, Taylor, have you been able to track some of the questions coming through the Q&A?
Yeah, I only have one right now. The other one JT answered in the chat that people can read if they'd like. But the one that we have right now is, I think, was more targeted at JT. But is it cheaper for beverage companies to use virgin plastic?
Cheaper, it depends on the month. So it depends on the month. When they flood the market like that, will they pressure them to use virgin? Yes, they will. But it depends on the month, and so what happens is recycled has to match the price of virgin, and when they do, they obviously can't process plastic, even though the two have nothing to do with each other as far as the manufacturing process. So when they get down to a penny, they push the recyclers out of business.
So thank you. So JT, you and Youpa were able to meet while you were in town and kind of discuss, different kind of experiences and perspectives working with plastics and recycling. I'm curious, given now that you're able to see each other's presentation in full, or at least the presentation for today, if either of you had reactions to the other's presentation, specifically JT, the focus on toxicity of plastics and its production and its existence. I wonder if you could comment on that, JT.
You broke up a little bit on me. I'm not sure. Well, could you repeat that, please?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could comment, hopefully you can hear me, on the toxicity of plastics and if there's ways when we're talking about circularity to, deal with that as an issue, to reduce toxicity.
Sure. No, I can't reduce toxicity. So first of all, I do love the fact that Youpa and I are both agreeing and having great conversations because we're coming from two very different points. Isn't that a beautiful thing today, that we can both learn from each other? And so for that, I feel blessed. And Youpa, thank you so much for sharing that with you. So I can impact. I don't disagree with the chemicals in plastics. Our stance is we think plastics are here to stay, so recycle them in our opinion is much better than continuing to make more. So we're dealing with the issue at hand and trying to make the best of it. One of the things I will say that I am interested with Youpa's, I am on a further intensive research on. I'm comfortable with mechanical recycling and not and having a minimal impact, has the lowest impact of recycling, for sure, less impact than aluminum and less than virgin. Youpa pointed out some big challenges with chemical recycling. I've been very engaged, as she mentioned. That's a new process that's really coming into vogue, and she's pushed me to understand, what is the environmental impact. I hear what these plants say to me, but I like to always not expect but inspect. So I have been reaching out to some of those plants, and I want to know more if they're creating carbon issues, harmful chemicals into the air, into the environment. So that's one of the things that I have for me personally, that from our conversation last week, that I want to take a careful look at is, what is the when you break these chemicals down in a high heat environment back to the pyrolysis molecular level, what are the impacts? And I don't know. So that's one thing there. So for sure, that's what our interaction brought for me personally. So
Thanks, JT. Youpa, did you want to comment on JT's presentation in any capacity, or we can go to some questions?
Yeah, I just the knowledge that you have, JT, about how things work in the current system seems really important to figure out how to do things better. The mechanical recycling, yes, I'm not I'm not a chemical engineer, but I'm reading these studies about the toxicities, both that are part of the plastic making process and then that come from various sources and basically contaminate the plastic further. There are scientists that are doing the research about that. And I don't know, when we say reducing toxic chemicals in plastics, Derek, last week you said, well, what is how does that work? And so that's a really big area that, if we can't figure out some of them, we have to figure out other ways of doing it. And along with that, designing for refill and reuse is an incredibly important part of the conversation, and extender producer responsibility, so that businesses and corporations are incentivized to find better, safer ways to do things. And I think that does have to be through policy work. The large corporations have not proven to be able to live up to their goals of, increased recycled materials in their products, or, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation has done important work looking at that. It doesn't happen. As much as companies might say what they're going to do, they tend to not live up to their goals. So the chemical recycling, the work that I've read so far is very disturbing. The chemical recycling either gets, or either turned into plastic, which I don't see has been doing at scale at any way at this point, or into fuel. And the air pollutants and hazardous wastes that are created are just untenable. So I kind of rambled there a bit. But.
Thanks, Youpa. We have another question that came in, and they ask, can the speakers comment on bioplastics? Do either of you have any knowledge on that?
I think we both agreed last week that often, and I can't say this always, and I'm sure there are some that are better than others, some of the same kinds of energy, water, chemicals can be used in bioplastics as well. So I have concerns about bioplastics.
I'm with Youpa. I don't know if we're talking plant-based plastics and stuff. I don't see a big difference between the two. I'm with Youpa. I agree. I don't think that's a solution for sure. So.
Say, since you were able to visit JT, I was wondering if you could comment, since it's pretty close, near and dear to us here in Missoula, for those of us who are on the call who are here. Can you tell us a little bit about this Las Vegas facility and what you know about it in terms of its potential to move us towards circularity?
I'm encouraged. You can eliminate a step in the supply chain. That's a positive because it has a lower carbon footprint. It makes things more economical, viable for use of recycled plastics. So since our conversation, we're in the audit process now of, I know that they're for sure processing the 1s and 2s. I do want to get confirmation on 3 through 7s. So
Okay, thanks, JT. I wanna, yeah, I'm seeing a comment here about the bioplastics and that, yes, they are still single use. There's definitely I mean, plastics are prevalent in the environment for ages, and what happens to bioplastics when they break down? Maybe the bio part actually breaks down, but there's still those chemicals in there. I want to bring your attention to in the chat, there's a survey. If you guys would be willing to click on that link, you could offer us some insights about just being able to be part of this conversation today, and any suggestions or thoughts you have moving forward. Another question here. Yes. Just trying to track the Q&A, guys. Any further questions from anyone? Well, I guess we've covered a lot today, and maybe I'm seeing a question here, and before we break, and I think so for example, the question is what countries have banned plastic? I'm curious if either of you know of other countries or municipalities, for example, that are doing like a really progressive job in terms of dealing with how to manage this plastic stream.
Did put in the resource handout. There's a great new tool. I think it's in part managed by the Plastic Pollution Coalition, and it's a database for global plastic laws. And so that's a really good resource to look at policy and ordinances.
Great. Thank you, Youpa.
Just to follow up, maybe JT, do you have any other countries that you're looking at that you are kind of gleaning off of as you go through your circularity studies and audits and things like that? Just wondering if there's places that are doing it better than here that you like to look at. If JT, if you're speaking, I wonder if your audio is cutting out because we're not able to hear you. But that's okay. Thanks for joining us.
So we're at the top of the hour, and I want to offer again this survey. If you are able to get in there, you can leave your contact information, and we can make sure that if you didn't pick it up in the chat already, there's been some resources that have been shared by Youpa as well as JT, which we can share with you. So with that, I would like to thank you all again. Thank you to our presenters for all of their work and time and energy they put into sharing with us today, and for all of you showing up like this to be part of this conversation. That's what it takes to address challenges like this. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. Have
You
a good day.
all.